Yo, what's up, everyone, and welcome back to the Locked On 49ers Squad Show. I'm your host, Eric Triple E Engel. You may know me as the former producer for the Murph and Mac Morning Show on KMBR. And today, we are going to talk about Brock Purdy's 2025 season in review. The man got paid a big old bag last offseason. Was it worth it?
And I'm Ayrton Osley, and I'll be talking about potential fits for the Niners in free agency and the draft after hiring Raheem Morris to be defensive coordinator.
Hey everyone, I'm Dwayne Boyd, four-time Super Bowl champion, and I'm going to talk about the offensive line. How can they improve it, and what is the status of the left tackle? Will he return, or will he go to the great golf course in the I was going to say in the sky, but someplace out.
We don't want that.
someplace out in no man's land, okay?
We'll get into all that and more today on the Locked On 49ers Squad Show.
To all the faithful, it's the 49ers Squad. Everything San Francisco 49ers every week. Covering all the big hits and game-changing plays from Levi's Stadium. The way only the Locked On Podcast Network can. For those faithful to the Bay, the 49ers Squad Show starts now.
Hey, thanks everyone for tuning in today for another edition of the Locked On 49ers Squad Show. Taking a break from your Winter Olympics viewing, I'm assuming. And shout out to everyone tuning in on the Locked On 49ers YouTube channel or on the Locked On 49ers podcast feed. However you're tuning in, we appreciate you. And make sure that you hit that subscribe button if you aren't already subscribed. And if you missed our last episode, we have a new, relatively new. He's got one show under his belt, a new face, a new voice to add to the show. Ayrton Osley of USA Today covers the NFL as a whole, but my guy grew up here in the Bay Area and is a big 49er fan, so you know that he's paying a lot of attention to what's going on with the Niners. Looks like we lost Dwayne real quick there. We'll try and get him back, but Ayrton, a lot to dissect that we didn't get into on the last show that we had. And so we didn't really get into the quarterback situation too much. And I'm curious, if you had to give Brock Purdy a grade for what he did last season, what would you give him?
For 2025, I give him probably a B+. I feel like it was pretty solid considering everything going on around him as far as injuries go, including injuries to himself. I think part of looking back on his season in 2025, I feel like that in the injuries, the kind of nagging injuries down the stretch of the season, it took him a while to actually be healthy. I'd say he probably played maybe a handful of games overall in 2025 healthy as a starter, or as healthy as you can be in an NFL season past week 10. So I think considering all of that, solid B+, A- range, pretty good season.
Yeah, and I mean, I've heard so many people. I just want to get this out of the way so we don't have to go too deep into this topic because it's one that just irks me. Like, we've heard so many people talk about how Brock Purdy throughout the years is, maybe he's not an elite quarterback because he doesn't have this huge arm, or he's not Josh Allen with the dual threat ability. But this guy has an elite processing brain. And I've heard the argument that the 49ers can't win a Super Bowl with a guy that lacks that level of talent. And Ayrton, I see your immediate reaction. And I mean, I'm sitting here watching the Seattle Seahawks win a Super Bowl at Levi's with Brock Purdy's former backup quarterback. And it just sounds insane to me that people still think this way about Brock.
I don't understand it fully. I think it's selling short what he does. People overlook him in 2022, 2023, given the talent level around him. I think 2024 was his best season as a starter, even though the team didn't perform well. Considering everything he was given that season after the Super Bowl run, I think for me, it cemented his status as, top 10. He's top 10 quarterback. I would say top 5 is a little bit tough to argue, but he's definitely a plus starter and worthy of this job and the contract he received.
I mean, we could go all Joe Flacco-esque and ask the question, is he elite? Because I mean, I would say, yeah, when you pair him with the Kyle Shanahan, this is exactly the kind of guy that you want in the Shanahan system, a guy who operates with anticipation and has excellent accuracy. Sure, maybe he's not going to throw an Aaron Rodgers, ball that's in the air, like or more relevant, like that Caleb Williams throw in the Rams playoff game where he's jumping off of his back foot, falling backwards, and throws the ball almost 60 yards in the air on a rope into the back corner of the end zone. Sure, maybe Brock can't do that, but Shanahan's also not asking him to do that. So sounds a little insane to me. And Dwayne, I'm curious, do you think that the 49ers are overpaying for what they're getting with Brock? Or do you think that this is kind of what you should expect from Brock Purdy? And do you think he's worth that massive price tag that he came with in the last offseason?
I think, Brock is a great game managing quarterback, okay? And I look at it from this standpoint, when you're behind, how good is it when the team is behind? How good can he get you from one end zone to the other and get you a score? That's what I look at. And right now, a lot of things play into it. We can't just say he's an average quarterback because he got average receivers. So if you got a bunch of average guys on the other end, how can you be great? All right. He's not Joe Montana with Jerry Rice. Okay. They don't have that talent at receivers, unless I'm wrong. Only receiver that they really have that's great is the tight end. Okay. So how do you compare him to being in the elite 5 or 6 quarterbacks in the league? The guy is who he is, and that's what you look at. He can manage the game. Plus, what makes it great is if you got a great defense behind him, he'll put you in position to score. Okay, but as far as, man, if it's 2 minutes in the game and you want him to have the ball, I haven't seen him do that. He's not really one of those comeback quarterbacks. Every one of game I ever watch, it always ends in an interception or something else, Maybe I'm wrong. I might be watching the wrong quarterback, but
yeah, I mean, I agree that, this is kind of what you're going to get with Brock, and he's not a guy who's usually going to implode too much. I feel like he has like one game a season where he just completely falls apart. And this last year, it was that Carolina game when he threw those 3 picks, and the 49ers still won that game for what it's worth. And obviously you think back a couple years to that Ravens game, which still just burns into my brain, where he just threw a couple just baffling interceptions, just floating balls up over the middle. But Dwayne, I think when you're saying that the 49ers got an average wide receiver group, I think that's even being a little nice. That's a little generous for what we're seeing out there.
You calling them a below average?
I mean, it's hard not to feel that way when your best pass catcher is a running back and your next best pass catcher is a tight end. I mean, this receiver group, I don't think that you can really do it justice by calling it anything but what it is. It was bad this last season. I mean, one of the worst groups in the NFL, in my personal opinion. Maybe if they were healthy for the full season, maybe if you had Brandon Ayuk, I mean, you're missing a $30 million a year player at that position, which is obviously very tough to come back from at any position group. But especially with wide receivers and the way that things have kind of changed in recent years in the NFL and how important that position has become, it's really hard when you're in a division that, like the Seahawks have Jackson Smith and Jigba. The Rams have Puka Nacua. Even the Cardinals have Marvin Harrison Jr. Like, I would argue that the Cardinals receiving core was better than the 49ers last year, which is abysmal because the Cardinals are like, we were just clowning on them last week, saying they're not even really a part of that 3-horse race in the NFC West. And maybe Ricky Pearsall, I see the chat mentioning Pearsall, he does have the upside to be a good wide receiver, but he doesn't scream wide receiver 1 to me. He doesn't. Any of those names that I just threw out there, I don't expect Ricky Pearsall to ascend to the level of a JSN, to the level of a Puka Nacua, to the level of even a Marvin Harrison Jr. I mean, I don't even know if this guy can be a Michael Wilson. I mean, I just don't know what Ricky's going to turn into. The best ability is availability, and so far he has shown that he does not have that ability. But Brock is doing a lot with what he's got, in my opinion. Last year in 2025, he posted a quarterback rating of 100.5. That's not bad, or quarterback rating, and he had a QBR of 72.8. That's not bad at all. And Brock, maybe you want to see a few fewer interceptions, like he did have a 2-to-1 touchdown to pick ratio, which I would like to see that get a little bit better. But he won every game except for that last one against the Seahawks in the regular season, and the game against the Jaguars that he started, in which he was very clearly not ready to go. He looked very injured in that game. He should not have been out there on the field in that final game in September. we didn't see him for damn near 2 months last year. And when he came back, all he did was win 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 games in a row right off of the injury. So to me, Brock Purdy, the way he plays also, like, just if you're just looking at the numbers and giving a take, I feel like that's a very casual way to grade Brock's performance from this last year. This guy makes so many off-schedule throws and creates so many opportunities with his legs for this team. And Ayrton, can you break that down a little bit? Like, how does Brock utilize his legs to really exploit defenses, and how does Shanahan kind of lean into that ability?
Yeah, no, I'd say just a quick fire hitting with some more stats for you, just because you were getting into it, so I thought I'd add a couple more. Looking at EPA, expected points added per drop back, he was 4th in the league, only behind Drake May, Jordan Love, Matthew Stafford. 2nd in completion percentage over expected. Like, if you look at the advanced metrics per drop back, he's one of the best passers in the league. But overall, looking at what Shanahan utilizes, before Brock, he didn't necessarily have a quarterback that could extend plays or be potentially like make plays if everything's covered. You look at like Matt Ryan, not really happening. Jimmy Garoppolo, definitely not happening. So there's the idea, and the thing as well to understand with Brock is athleticism is more about his burst. It's not necessarily a long speed. One of the things that came out of the drafts when he was at the NFL Combine is he had the same 10-yard split in his 40-yard dash as Christian McCaffrey did. So this is a guy that he's got great burst, that 10-yard burst, where it's like, okay, pocket's collapsing, things are covered. You can just like, okay, I'll run out of here instead of a negative play or, a throwaway, I'll gain a few yards here. And the threat of that can open things up in the flat and in the middle, which are areas that Shanahan's offenses can exploit, especially if you're using stacks, bunches, motion. You're already moving the defenders pre-snap. If you add that in, that every time that middle of the field defender or flat defender has to consider, like, we have to honor Brock Purdy's mobility, that means, well, one fewer defender available to take on or handle some of the coverage assignments that Shanahan's going to throw at you.
And I love seeing Shanahan utilize that. Like, I love seeing when I feel like Brock is at his absolute best when the run game is working and you can get him into those play action bootleg sets, and he just absolutely torches defenses almost every time. He almost always makes the right decision in those situations. And Dwayne, how tough is it as a former defensive lineman to be able to deal with a guy like that, who you're worried about him getting out of the pocket? If you go inside, he's just going to bounce it outside and have maybe he only has half the field to work with, but he's got the athleticism to go pick up the first down with his legs, or the smarts to figure out where to place the ball against that defense, or he can just step right up into that pocket and deliver a perfectly timed dart right over the middle on a dig route. I mean, how tough is that to know how to plan for as a defense?
Well, it's tough because this is the thing that when we used to play against when I was coaching, and we used to play against the Saints, and it was always hard getting to Drew Brees. And he had a feel for the pocket, okay? He knew when to get out of the pocket. He knew where the rush was coming from. And you never saw Drew in a situation where he didn't get the ball out. And he wasn't that tall, but he didn't get balls batted down. And the thing that's not to me that Purdy struggled with was when there's pressure up in his face. Okay, when the pocket collapses on him, he doesn't handle it well right now. Once he learns that, he will be a lot better, I think, when he learns how to move in the pocket. Because sometimes I know one guy that used to bug me all the time, man, we could never get to, was Dan Marino. He was slow as they come, and he knew how to move in the pocket. He was taller than Purdy, but he knew how to slide and move in the pocket and knew how to get rid of the ball. He knew when the pocket was collapsing. And sometimes I think where Purdy is, he tries to hold the ball a little too long and doesn't feel the rush, and that's when he gets in trouble. So if the 49ers can show up that offensive line good enough to keep him in a nice, clean pocket, that's one stat that they don't have on quarterbacks is when the pocket breaks down, what percentage are they as a passer? That's a stat that they have them all. They have every stat in the world, but they need to come up with one of those. It's like, hey, when this guy feels pressure, he doesn't handle it well. And the thing that I know I used to watch all the time and taught my guys is we always looked at which way they would escape, okay? And once they escaped that way, were they a runner or a passer? And we always wanted to push. If we had a quarterback that you can make move to his left, and he was going to tuck and run, that's what we wanted. We're going to force him to his left so that he can tuck the ball and run. And to me, I don't think a lot of defense coaches don't pay that much attention to it. But it's if you studied Brock, that's one thing that stood out about him the most was when pressure got up in his face, and that's when he had the most problems with interceptions, getting balls knocked down. And if he just learns to slide to the opening, he'll be a much better passer because he's accurate. We've seen him put the ball on some in some tight spots, and he can do it.
He most certainly can. And I mean, I'm seeing stuff in the chat right now about asking why Brock is so protected and that an elite quarterback should be able to carry the team with nobody else around you. And that is just such a insane argument to me. Like there's look at all the weapons of both teams that were in the Super Bowl last year. I mean, just to offer a counter argument to that, look at Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens. Didn't even make the playoffs last year. And I have no qualms with saying I think that Lamar is a better quarterback than Brock Purdy. I think Lamar offers just a huge dual threat ability, multi-time MVP award winner. Didn't even get his team into the postseason. And I know he was injured, but hey, so was Brock for half the season. It's an insane argument to me to think that a guy in today's NFL can just go out there and put the whole team on his back and carry them to a Super Bowl. That's not today's NFL anymore. You cannot do that in the league today. It's about the team. It's not about one guy. And Brock, I think for what you see with Kyle Shanahan offense, the kind of guy that you want, this is the perfect match. This is a match made in heaven for Kyle Shanahan. It is not too hard to go back. You don't even have to go back that far. Think about Jimmy Garoppolo missing that throw in the Super Bowl to Emmanuel Sanders. I mean, does Brock make that throw? I think he absolutely does. I don't think he misses Emmanuel Sanders the way that Jimmy G did, or how awful Jimmy G was as soon as there was any pressure at all. Guy had no legs left by the end of his career, partially not his fault. He had a lot of ACL problems, and we know that. But go back even further. Nick Mullins, CJ Beathard, are those guys doing it for you? I mean, it is not that hard to look back at very recent 49ers history and realize how much worse things could be. I think that the 49ers absolutely made the right choice by locking up Brock in a long-term deal where he is happy and he wants to be here and lead this team going forward. It is so tough if you don't have that guy. And the 49ers lucked into getting him in the very last pick of the NFL draft. I mean, he fell into your lap. Don't screw it up. It's pretty simple to me in that regard. So I think Brock had I think Ayrton, you were pretty spot on with the grade you gave him, like a B plus, borderline A minus. I might. It's hard for me to give a guy an A when he only played half the season. That's the only thing I would say. And I know that Brock has had a lot of injuries throughout his career, some unavoidable, like the one against the Eagles in the playoffs. I mean, I don't know how you don't break something when your arm bends that way, and that's not his fault, obviously. But I would like to see him have, a season where he plays, 16 of the 17 games. That would make me pretty happy to see from Brock. And that's really the only critique I have against this guy right now. I mean, get him some pass catching options other than a running back and a tight end, and maybe he will produce some of those quote unquote elite numbers that we're looking to see out of him. Also, another thing that we can get into a little bit later on in the show, get him some more help up front. Dwayne teased it at the start. We'll get into that a little bit later. They also should be, I think, looking for a guard in this draft as well. You need a lot of help on that offensive line. And if Trent Williams decides to hang him up, oh man, things are going to get really tough up there really fast. So we'll get into that a little bit later. But next, on the other side, we got to talk about Raheem Morris. This guy coming in to replace Robert Saleh comes with a very different philosophy, and I want to get into the nitty-gritty of his scheme. We got Dwayne Board and his brilliant mind here to break it all down. So let's pick Dwayne's brain a little bit about the Raheem scheme on the other side here on the Locked On 49ers Squad Show. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. The Winter Games are officially here, and if you're anything like us, you're locking in for events you only get to see on the biggest stage once every 4 years. I mean, I was just watching men's figure skating and men's snowboard half pipe final today. Absolutely electric events. I'm all over the Winter X Games. I'm all over that too. But the Winter Olympics, man, just top tier level entertainment. And that's why following the Winter Games on FanDuel just makes sense. From medal counts to individual events to finding your angle on the sports you care about most, FanDuel gives you more ways to stay connected to the action. The drama of those curling matches, oh man, that was top tier cinema, and the U.S. team just blowing all expectations out of the water. Shout out Duluth, Minnesota, got a ton of mentions during the Olympics, which you don't hear too often. So that was pretty fun. Hockey matches have been unreal. It's just been so electric, men's and women's. So make sure that you're checking out FanDuel while you're watching the Winter Olympics. The Winter Games are on, and there's no better way to follow them than with FanDuel. FanDuel, play your game. Welcome back to the Locked On 49er Squad show. I'm your host, Eric Triple E Engel, joined by Ayrton Ostley of USA Today and four-time Super Bowl champion Dwayne Board. And Dwayne, we're going to throw a whole lot of questions here at you about Raheem Morris, the 49ers' new defensive coordinator, and he brings something a little bit different than Robert Saleh. Not that Saleh was the reason for the 49ers defense underachieving last year in a lot of ways. I mean, I think he was holding that thing together with hopes and dreams and paper clips and scotch tape for the most part of the season, without Fred Warner, without Nick Bosa, and with a secondary group that just looked absolutely lost at times outside of Diamador Lenore and Upton Stout, who played pretty good football, I would say. The safety position, absolute dog water, complete trash. And for the a large majority of the season, you got some woo licks out of guys like Marquise Siegel and Malik Mustafa, as Dwayne likes to call him. But, I'm sitting here looking at this defense that was dead last in sacks in the NFL, dead last in interceptions in the NFL. And I can't help but think I need something to mix it up. And as much as I love Robert Saleh, I didn't really like seeing the 49ers just go out there and just stay in that base defense and just try to just win individual matchups when they clearly didn't have the horses to do that. So let's get into the scheme. Raheem Morris likes to run kind of a 3-4 look, which you don't see a whole lot. You don't see a whole lot of odd fronts in the NFL these days. And he loves that penny look, which is the 5 at the line of scrimmage. You got your 3 down linemen and 2 edge rushers that are standing up on the outside. I'm kind of confused. I'm wondering how the 49ers personnel is going to fit into this. And Dwayne, the biggest question mark for me is Nick Bosa. Where does he fit in? If you are looking at Raheem Morris's scheme and you're wondering, and I'm wondering where Nick Bosa is going to fit in, what would you say? Is he going to be a stand-up guy? Is he going to be down in the 3 tech on the inside of the offensive tackle? Where do you expect Nick Bosa to be in this Raheem Morris, penny look or that 3-4 odd front that he runs?
Well, the first thing is if he's playing a 3-4, it's hard for a guy like Bosa to play that defensive end spot. So he's going to have to be the guy that travels. Move right to left, and he's going to be the guy that they're going to bring a lot. And that's the reason that Raheem Morris runs a 3-4 look, because when you get that 3-4 look, it's a balanced look. So you don't know where the rush is coming. So in that case, he's going to have to drop. Nick Bosa is going to have to do some dropping in coverage, and when you drop it in coverage, basically you're in the zone scheme. Okay, so a lot of teams run the zone blitzes from a 4-man look, or this is a 3-man look. It's no difference, because either or, you're going to have a dropper coming from somewhere, and that's his thing, is you trying to fool the offense, so to dictate the pressure, because sometimes they'll probably count Nick Bosa as a rusher all the time, and they're going to slide the protection there, so then you bring your rush from the other side. So that's the thing that you're going to be looking at a lot. And Nick, he's going to have to drop, and they need to find another guy who's along that line. And there's some guys in the draft that they can bring in who can do both, who can drop and cover. So that'll make a big difference too. But the thing you want to do is get teams into third and long. Then that's when he shows his skills at creating schemes to attack the offense, and that's what people like about it. And he knows his scheme, and he knows how to move the guys up front, knows where to put the linebackers in the right spot. So it'll be interesting. I totally don't think he's going to go away completely away from the 49ers scheme. He's going to sprinkle a little bit of that in with his stuff.
Yeah, and he is a guy who has shown over the years that he likes to run a lot of multiple looks. It's not like he's just running out in that 3-4 base defense every single time, which is, I think, something that I like about Raheem Morris, because I thought we saw a little staleness out of the 49ers defense at times last year. And I can't even count on my fingers and toes how many times per show, Dwayne, last year you would just scream for the 49ers to run some damn games up front. No stunts happening at all. And one thing that I was looking into was the number of stunts that the Falcons run. And man, they love to run those stunts. I think I read that they ran the second most stunts on rundowns, basically, of any team in the NFL this last year. So I'm sure that's music to your ears, Dwayne, that you got to get some of those stunts running and stop with these just straight rushes with one-on-one matchups and trying to expect guys like Alfred Collins or CJ West or Bryce Huff to go win. They just did not have the horses to do that last year. So I think that's a very good sign for this team. But you also, it leaves you to kind of wonder who those three interior linemen are going to be. Who's going to be the nose tackle, and who are going to be the other two defensive tackles that line up on the inside. I mean, they usually run that 4-eye technique where they're lining up on the inside eye of the offensive tackle. And if I'm just projecting at this point, I kind of think those three guys are currently on the roster. I think I just said their names. I think it's CJ West. I think it's Alfred Collins. And I think it's Mykel Williams. And I think we could see Mykel Williams playing that nose tackle position. I know CJ West is a bigger body, but the long arms of a Mykel Williams that can, and just being able to generate that pass rush on the interior just looks, I mean, very, very, very appealing in my brain when I start to think about that. And to kind of go off what you were saying, Dwayne, about how maybe the 49ers need to find another pass rusher opposite Nick Bosa, I'm wondering if they maybe have that guy on the roster already. And there's a few options that we could get into here. One of them is Bryce Huff. Another one is D. Winters, obviously, who was that linebacker walking down to the line of scrimmage. We saw that a few times in the Saleh system as well. Also, you got Nick Martin there, who was a very good pass rusher in college. And maybe this is the scheme to unlock some of those abilities that Nick Martin has. While we didn't get to see him much last year in his rookie year do some of those things, I'm wondering, does any of this excite you, Ayrton? Like, are any of these guys maybe like tickling your brain a little bit? Like, do you think the answer might be there for the 49ers, or do you think they really need to go out and get some more help?
Yeah, I think there's a decent amount on the roster already, but one thing I'm curious about, because one thing I envisioned was actually keeping Bosa down, roll with the front of Bosa, Alfred Collins, Mykel Williams, so you get the burst and power from Bosa, you get the length from Collins, just eat blocks. Same with Mykel Williams. And then maybe this frees up Bryce Huff to be that penny guy. He's a little bit on the lighter side. And I'm curious just because looking at what the Falcons did differently last year with those 2 first-round picks, edge rushers, both smaller, leaner guys, Jalen Walker and James Pierce Jr. And I look at what the 49ers have traditionally looked for at the defensive line, at the edge rusher positions. Usually they favor more longer guys, long-armed, bigger bodies. Even look at their trade acquisition, Keon White. He's a bigger body. Mykel Williams, 6'5", 6'6", around 270, long arms. So does this maybe change how they look at, okay, if we're going to run something a little bit more like a 3 down front, as we're saying, kind of similar to what Raheem Morris did in Atlanta last year, does that mean that maybe, hey, don't necessarily use the prior draft history, what they target, as what they're going to go for in this draft? I do like Nick Martin potentially being deployed in that way. I thought it was a bit of a reach to take him as early as 49ers did in last year's draft. But one thing you could not argue with is his athleticism. He is a very, very good downhill athlete for the linebacker position. Use that speed. If he could use that speed as a penny rusher like that, I love to see how he could grow in that way.
And the one guy who intrigues me is D Winters, because this is a guy who sometimes he flashes, and obviously he's got great speed. He's got great burst. He plays with violence, and I love seeing D Winters flying all around all over the field like that. But I think that the 49ers have been asking him to do too many things for where he's at in his development in the NFL. And part of that was out of necessity due to injury last year. Obviously, Fred Warner being gone forced D Winters into a role that he normally doesn't play. And the great thing, best thing about this defense, we said this last show, is that Fred Warner is coming back. The biggest addition that they can make is just getting Fred Warner back on the field. And that is going to happen in week one. It's going to happen in the preseason. We'll see Fred out there. And that frees up so much. That unlocks Raheem Morris's scheme, because having him be able to basically be that one linebacker that's not rushing in those penny looks, it allows Fred to just free range almost, like he can. And that's when he's at his best, when Fred is able to just look and react and just read, what his eyes are seeing on the field, and just instincts. And that's the best thing that I think the 49ers can do for Fred Warner in this defense. I'm very excited to see how Fred Warner develops underneath Raheem Morris, because I think we might see Raheem Morris unlock some things from Fred Warner that we didn't even see with Robert Saleh when the 49ers were at the peak of their defensive powers a couple years ago. So I am very excited to see that. The other thing I'm excited to see is hopefully some damn pressures on the quarterback, because wow, were the 49ers awful at that last year. Third worst in the NFL at 16.7% pressure rate. And the Falcons, they were middle of the pack, which is a little bit concerning considering they had the second highest blitz rate in all of the NFL at 34.7%, only second to Brian Flores and the Vikings. They were 15th in the NFL in pressure rate, 23.6%. So while that is substantially better than where the 49ers were at last year, the effectiveness of that doesn't, if you're the number 2 blitzing team in the NFL and you're only, middle of the pack in pressure rate, it's a little bit concerning to me, Dwayne. How are you interpreting this? Is that something that you think is going to benefit for the 49ers, or do you think that the blitz happiness of a Raheem Morris, maybe it's going to generate a few more pressures, but it might also leave you exposed on the back end a little bit more? Well,
that goes back to what's the down and distance, okay? Are they playing from behind a lot, or are they ahead? Those stats is hard to say, because how good was the offense? Okay, did they play ahead in a lot of games where you got a chance to lock on and just rush the heck out the quarterback, or were they playing catch up every time where they was handing the ball off and the other team was handing the ball off and playing ball control? So it's hard to say, but you just go and look at what were they on third down, on 3rd and 7+. Okay. It's a whole new story. If those stats, some of those stats are a little misgiven. You have to really look at the true picture. But I think he's going to bring more juice to the 49ers when it's 3rd down, 3rd and long. When we watched the 49ers when it was 3rd and 12+, and like the quarterback was back there all day. He could have went to what's the sandwich shop? And made a sandwich and came back and had time to throw the ball down the field for a touchdown. But that's the thing they got to do. They got to get the quarterback off his spot and make him pay when he lets the ball go. And it's hard to say if Atlanta, when he was in Atlanta, did they have the lead at the time? Yeah, the close.
In a lot of games, that answer was no, considering the Falcons' record last year. And man, Dwayne, now you got me thinking about sandwiches. Now I'm thinking about, deli board in here in San Francisco. I'm thinking about Little Luca's down in South San Francisco, man. Little Luca's has been for a very long time. Oh, that garlic spread, man. I just dreamed. I've got my mouth watering now. But yeah, you're right. Any quarterback that the 49ers played against, pretty much had time to get in their car, get out of Levi's, which we all know how long that takes, get all the way up to South San Francisco, get a little Lucas sandwich, get all the way back into Levi's, and then throw a pass. That was basically how much time the opposing quarterbacks had last year sitting in the pocket against this 49ers defense. So I really like any upgrade over what they did last year. Rushing the passer is going to be a good thing, and I have a very hard time believing that it can get much worse than it was last year. So that is I think, looking on the bright side of things, it can't get much worse as far as rushing the passer goes. So that is one thing that could improve. Another thing that could improve that I really am expecting to improve is the interception numbers, the turnover numbers for the 49ers. Falcons, 6th best in the NFL in interception percentage. 49ers, I don't got to tell you guys this, dead last. They had such a hard time turning the ball over in interception percentage rate, and it was really, really rough watching this team go out there and continually, just not be able to come up with turnovers. And one of the things that I'm curious about is if Deommodore Lenoir will end up following the opposing team's number one wide receiver, switching sides of the field, because it's not something that we saw the 49ers do a lot last year, but it is something that Raheem Morris asks his cornerbacks to do and has asked them to do in a lot of his schemes. So, Ayrton, do you think that Deommodore Lenoir has that skill set to be able to follow the opposing team's number one wide receiver?
I think he does, and I think it's something where you could use him as a traveler and kind of at least see how that goes, and because again, it's like I feel I'm of the school of thought that turnovers can be a kind of eventually they're not sticky. They kind of regress to the mean in time. One thing that the Falcons did well last year, and in my opinion, is a lot of their draftees had good ball production in college. Like I loved Xavier Watts coming out of the draft. He was one of my favorite safeties. In fact, they got him converted wide receiver. He can get ball production. Ball production from college to the NFL is relatively sticky. Like we see that pan out. So I'm looking forward to that. But I think to help no matter what, Deommodore Lenoir, I think he can handle that. He's a little bit undersized at 5'10", but he can still handle a lot of the assignments. Like we saw him play well against the likes of DK Metcalf, for goodness sakes. That's about as big an athlete you'll play at the position in the NFL. So I'm happy to have my confidence in them moving him around to at least see how that goes. Obviously, keep Upton Stout where he is. Due to his size, may not be able to handle outside receivers quite as much. But Lenoir, why not? I think it can work.
Yeah, and two things on that. Lenoir, we saw him shine against guys like Jackson Smith and Jigba last year, completely shut him down in some of those matchups, and literally did not allow a catch in one of them against Seattle. So he's shown that he's got the chops to do it. I think he's a little up and down. I would like to see a little more consistency from him. I feel like he rises to the challenge, though. If you give this guy an opportunity to go mano-a-mano with some of the biggest names, I think it makes him better. It's like an iron sharpens iron type situation. And I think you got to at least try, right? Like you got to at least see what it looks like and then adjust if you have to. So I am expecting to see Deommodore Lenoir switching sides of the field. And he asked to do that a few times last year against number one wide receivers. The 49ers didn't always let him, but he was a guy who was vocal about wanting to be that guy. And you mentioned Upton Stout, which is one more thing I wanted to really make sure we hit on with this Raheem Morris scheme situation. One of the best blitzing cornerbacks in all of football. By some metrics, he was the best blitzing cornerback in all of football. He led all cornerbacks in quarterback pressures last season, 16% pressure rate on blitzes. And one thing that we know that Raheem Morris loves to do is, we talked about his blitz rate earlier, a lot of times he's bringing that nickel corner. And I think Upton Stout in this scheme, kind of like Fred Warner, might be a match made in heaven. And Dwayne, when you start to project and look at Upton Stout's trajectory from last year, and especially how he came on at the end of last season, what are you expecting from him this coming year in the Raheem Morris scheme?
Well, I think that's a good weapon for Raheem Morris to have, because when it's tough when you got a good, a good slot corner who can blitz, okay? The guy that can bring pressure. It creates havoc for teams, especially on third down, third and long, okay? If you got a good inside corner that can get to the quarterback, and you got a nice safety who can cover for him over the top, hey, it's a home run for you. And I know from playing up in Seattle, we had that with the guys that we had, and we had a safety that could play over the top and did a great job. And I think it's going to bring a whole new uh, defense for the 49ers on when it comes time to get after the quarterback, because I think Raheem Morris is going to have a scheme for every team that we play. Plus, he knows the Rams too, because he came out of that. He came out of that offense, so he knows what bothers that quarterback. Okay, and he has a feel for what's going to happen up in Seattle now. So I think it's a good fit for the 49ers. I thought the last time the 49ers had to replace the defense coordinator, they didn't have a clue what to do. They're kind of like, oh man, they was fumbling in the dark. So now they went out and got somebody with a background as a productive defensive coordinator.
Yeah, I am very excited about the fit. The one thing, if anything, that does concern me about the Raheem Morris fit with the 49ers is that Atlanta was really bad against the run last year. They gave up, or they were a bottom 10 run defense by most metrics in the NFL. It was kind of the one thing the 49ers defense was able to do decently well last year until they couldn't really do anything well the last couple of weeks of the season. And I think a lot of that was just attrition due to injury, but also it was encouraging to see that, guys like Mikael Williams were so good against the run. And although the guys like Alfred Collins and CJ West took a little while to get going in those roles, I feel like they developed significantly again towards the end of the season. This rookie class that the 49ers had from last year, I think a lot of what the 49ers are going to be able to do depends on how those guys develop in 2026. And I think it's paramount that specifically those two defensive tackles, that Alfred Collins and CJ West, continue to get better, continue to be good in the run, and Alfred Collins continues to swing that hammer down near the goal line and punch balls out before guys break the plane. I mean, that was one of my favorite plays from last season when Alfred Morris was able to force that fumble at the goal line. But it's going to be, I think, kind of tough in some situations if you got guys like a Nick Martin or like a Bryce Huff opposite Nick Bosa for the 49ers to go in there and stop some of these bigger run games, which you do see a lot of pretty solid run offenses in the NFC West. Obviously, Kenneth Walker just won the Super Bowl MVP. That guy is a handful. You also got Zach Charbonnet in that backfield up there in Seattle. The Rams have kind of a little two-headed monster forming down there with Kyron Williams and Blake Corum. You're going to need to be able to stop the run in this division, in addition to, playing real defense in other aspects as well, like rushing the passer, coming up with some turnovers, but you can't forget about the run defense. So, Ayrton, do you have any concerns about the 49ers continuing to be able to stop the run under this Raheem Morris regime?
I'm a little bit less concerned just because looking at the personnel from Atlanta, and I wonder how much of it is, were they not doing as well against the run simply because of the bodies they had out there? When you look at their outside linebacker duo, James Pierce and Jalen Walker, those guys, both rookies, were doing great against the pass, but they're not long. They're light. They're not long, which can come up when you're trying to set the edge and run defense. You look at the interior, they had a couple of guys in their second year that were a little questionable. They were I thought Rook Ororo was a bit of a reach when they took him in the second round in 2024, relying on Brandon Dorlus, a fourth round pick. Those are your two important down linemen. I'm comfortable saying that Alfred Collins and Nick Bosa are better than Rook Ororo and Brandon Dorlus. I feel very confident saying that. So part of me is less concerned just because of the talent at key positions. And also, I mean, again, as long as you got Alfred Collins eating up blocks in front of him and we let Fred Warner be Fred Warner, he's the best linebacker in the league. And so I'm just, from a strictly personnel standpoint, I understand your concerns, but I think the level of talent in the run defense aspect, specifically in San Francisco, is miles better than it was in Atlanta.
Yeah, and I would agree with you there.
Yeah, I agree too. When you put them those big tackles in a 4-eye, all they're gonna do is eat up two blockers, and all the linebackers gotta do is run and make tackles. It's easy. They don't have to take nobody on, and that's a nice thing.
Yeah, it's a nice thing for the Niners and a nightmare for anybody who's got to deal with Fred Warner running around
100%.
unblocked,
Good luck.
ready to come at you full speed like a damn missile shot out of a cannon. I mean, I'm excited to see what happens. Obviously, we're going to miss Robert Saleh. I don't think that the 49ers are getting better just because Saleh's leaving, and I hope nobody takes it as that. I'm just excited about what Raheem Morris brings with his versatile scheme, and I'm excited to see the fit with this 49er personnel group. And one more question before we get on out of here, Ayrton. I know you got to take off pretty soon here, but there's been some rumblings. Joey Bosa, I don't know, man. I've heard some things about how maybe the 49ers are shopping around for him. And I know that the Locked On 49ers podcast with Brian Peacock and Eric Crocker, they kind of dove into this topic recently as well. How are you guys feeling about that prospect of getting both Bosa brothers in this Raheem Morris scheme? I don't see how Joey really fits.
I don't see how he fits neither, because his brother fits in it. Nick, but Joey, no. To me, he's he might be at his prime. He was one of those guys that Bill Walsh would have called in his office 2 years ago and say, "Hey, look, this is what I want you to do," and he's going to say what? He's going to say, "Well, this is your last year, and after that, find something to do and something else to do in your life." So. And that's the thing. It's time for him maybe to move on in life, I think.
Yeah, I mean, he certainly didn't have a career year last year in Buffalo. He was not the most dynamic rusher that we've seen. I mean, we've seen him have big double-digit sack years. He's had 4 years in the NFL where he's had 10 or more sacks, but his last 4 seasons, 5 sacks, 6.5 sacks, 2.5 sacks. And while that might have been, damn near leading the team for the 49ers last year, I don't think that's necessarily what they're looking for. I just don't see the scheme fit. Ayrton, are you kind of on the same page as me and Dwayne here?
Yeah, I think his the best ability is availability, and it's been tough for him lately. As much as everybody loves seeing brothers play together, I don't think the juice is worth the squeeze with what he probably would want in a contract anyways. So yeah, I'm happy. There's easily like a handful of free agent edge rushers I'd rather have before him. Easily.
Yeah. And not to mention, I think they got to spend some money at the safety position. I don't know if we'll have time to really get into that topic today, but maybe for our next show, we can start thinking about how the 49ers can shore up that back end of that defense, because one of the things that we were just talking about is how important that safety position really is going to be in this Raheem Morris scheme, especially if you're sending extra guys up front. You really need to make sure you got that defense over the top. As Dwayne says, you got to make sure you're putting a hat on there and you don't let anybody blow by you. And the 49ers certainly let a lot of guys blow by them last year at the safety position. So that is something for another day. But next, we got to get into some of this other news around the 49ers. The Australia game has kind of, dates have been reported. We got some more clarity on that. And what does that mean for the 49ers? Plus, a little bit of Deebo Samuel rumblings. George Kittle kind of stirring the pot on some things. Ayrton, I know you gotta jump out of here, so we will see you next time. But on the other side, Dwayne Board and I will get into this Australia game, and later on some of the Deebo Samuel things, and also we got to still talk about that offensive line issue that Dwayne brought up at the beginning of the show. We'll get into all that and more next on the Locked On 49ers Squad Show. Today's show is brought to you by Indeed. If you've ever hired someone who looked good on paper but just wasn't the right fit, you know how important it is to find someone who fills that role perfectly. When you want candidates who truly match what you're looking for, trust Indeed sponsored jobs. If you're hiring, Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your post seen on other sites. Indeed's sponsored jobs put your post at the top of the page and help you reach the right candidates faster. If I need to hire someone for the show, like we just had to bring on Ayrton Osley, which what a great fit he's been for us so far, I'd go straight to Indeed and be very specific about what I need, real experience, not just a resume buzzword. Instead of struggling to get your job post seen, Indeed sponsored jobs helps you and your listing stand out and reach quality candidates faster. Sponsored jobs boost your post to people who are the best match for your role, and that makes all the difference in the world. Spend more time interviewing candidates who will check all your boxes with less stress, less time, and more results. Using Indeed sponsored jobs. Listeners of this show get a $75 sponsored job credit to help give your job the premium placement it deserves at Indeed.com/LockedOnNFL. Just go to Indeed.com/LockedOnNFL right now and support the show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Welcome back to the Locked On 49ers Squad Show. I'm your host, Eric Triple E Engel, joined by Dwayne Board, four-time Super Bowl champion Ayrton Osley had to run, but we're here to break down. We got a couple things to get through in this last 10 minutes of the show, man. We got a lot to get through. So let's get a move on. I want to get to the offensive line. You were kind of teasing at the beginning of the show that you're thinking the 49ers need to maybe make some upgrades, maybe start planning for the future because Trent Williams ain't getting any younger. And so, Dwayne, what do you want to see the 49ers do this offseason with this offensive line group?
I see them, again, they need to find someone. Well, they should have found someone down the line last year to play that left tackle because, Trent Williams he's really coming to the end of his career. He was injured a lot during the season. The guy had never practiced, and to me, offensive linemen, all they do is come out and hold hands all practice. It's not a real physical game for them this time. Anytime now, once they leave training camp, okay, so you have to be able to play together and get some cohesiveness going, and that's what we saw. The 49ers was the cohesiveness wasn't there at the beginning of the season. And it wasn't really there at the end of the season because injuries kept it from getting a real feel for each other. And to me, that's what offensive linemen are like pilot fish. They got to have somebody to guide them. And Trent, he's at the end of his career. He's not really. What does he have left? I don't know if he have very much left. And sometimes you stay too long and people lose respect for you in the league, and to me, he's at that point where he's been around too long, and now they need to go out and find a left tackle, especially if they want to keep Brock Purdy upright. And the thing that we saw too, and we talked about a lot, was how other teams was able to rush the 49ers, and we saw it against the Seattle Seahawks. Man, Purdy didn't have a chance sometimes. It was like nobody was there. It was like the rusher was on him before he could even get the ball in shotgun. So they need to address that offensive line, and we saw the run game too. The run game suffered from it, and that's because guys have to work together. Offensive linemen do when they block it, and also you need guys who understand, the protection. When the center calls the protection, he's got to be right, and that's another thing that they have to improve on too, is protecting the quarterback and making sure that those guys up front, those five guys up front, are right. And the 49ers, that's one thing they don't do. They don't chip and help the tackles, and they don't have the tight end in help protect either, because all those guys are going out, and when you got five guys going against 6 and 7 guys, the numbers don't add up.
Yeah, and there was a bit of a revolving door on that offensive line last year, especially on the left side, but the right side, it's crazy to me how fast things can change in the NFL, right? It wasn't too long ago that the right side of the line was the big concern, and the left side was just super solid. Just all you had to do was run left behind Trent Williams. And now running left did not really work for the 49ers last year. Running right seemed to be more successful on the Dom Pooney and Colton McKivitz side. And while Dom Pooney, I think I would expect him to start the season at right guard, but I'm not completely sold that he is without issue at that position. I think that we saw kind of a mixed bag from him at times last year, but he certainly has shown that he's got a lot of ability and capability to improve and get better and be a staple in this offensive line going forward. Left guard, giant question mark. Center, I'm not sold on anybody on the roster. And as you said, left tackle, you got to start planning for the future at some point. You definitely want to make sure you have that guy in the building before Trent Williams decides, I'm going to go fly around in my private jet for the rest of my life and play a different golf course every 3 days. And so you got to make sure that you got a contingency plan. And right now, the 49ers don't have one. So, Dwayne, if you had to pick one of these spots, center, left guard, or left tackle, what do you think it's most important that the 49ers address in this offseason, whether it's through the draft or free agency?
Well, number one, left tackle. Number two, left guard. And I'm sure they can find somebody in free agency to play left guard, okay? To play left tackle, people don't get rid of those guys. Those guys are hard to come by. So you can forget about that. You better go out and find a good one if you want to protect your $50 million man.
And that would seem like something that's, important to do. We just talked about earlier in the show how it would just be great to see Brock have a complete season without injury. And you kind of, that's not all on him. You got to make sure that you're keeping him upright and not letting guys come from the blind side and just obliterate him. And that happened way too many times last year. And while I do think that Trent Williams for this coming season is going to be, one of the better left tackles in the NFL, he's not the same, pencil in 71 for the all-pro first team left tackle at the beginning of the season. He's not that guy anymore. He's just not. And while he's a Hall of Famer, first ballot Hall of Famer, and just one of the most dominant forces that we've seen, 6'5", 320, and he's been a dominant force since all the way back at his Oklahoma days, Boomer Sooner. It's just not, he's not that guy anymore. It's as you said, if he was in the Bill Walsh system, it doesn't surprise me at all to hear you, a guy who is a Bill Walsh disciple, say, maybe it's time to move on from the guy before he starts to regress in the system itself, before he falls off that cliff, because that was a hallmark of how Bill Walsh operated. You think about the Joe Montana, Steve Young situation. If he wasn't afraid to move off of Joe freaking Montana, he would absolutely not be afraid to move off of a Trent Williams. So I get where you're coming from. And while I think that this year it is probably in the 49ers' best interest to make sure that Big 71 is there at the left tackle position, you got to have a contingency plan. I don't know if I struggle I go back and forth whether I think that's the most important thing or left guard to address on the offensive line in this offseason. But maybe you go get both, maybe you go get a veteran in free agency, like you were saying, to plug that hole out in the left guard spot. And plus, maybe you get a healthy Ben Barch this year. Maybe he pops. Maybe Nick Zakelj looks a little bit better. Connor Colby was okay in some spots last year. But again, all of these guys, you saw the good and you also saw the bad with a lot of these guys. So you need to have someone who is going to be consistent that you can bring in the offseason. And I just don't know that the 49ers are going to be able to go out and spend some draft capital at the left tackle position when you have all these other needs on the roster: safety, wide receiver. You got to fill some of these gaps, pass rusher. And at a certain point, you got to start making some choices as to what's more important. But that left tackle position, pretty damn paramount position in the NFL. So we will see what the 49ers do this offseason. They got a lot of needs. And they only have so many draft picks. So we'll see what they're able to do. But we got to take one last quick break here. On the other side, we'll get a little bit into these Deebo Samuel rumblings. And also, we got to briefly get into this Australia game. Dwayne, I know you are so excited about the 49ers going to a 19-hour difference time zone to go play a divisional game. So we'll get into that next here on the Locked On 49ers Squad Show. Welcome back to the Locked On 49ers Squad Show. I'm your host, Eric Triple E Engel, joined by Dwayne Board, 4-time Super Bowl champion. And Dwayne, if in about, a couple weeks after the Super Bowl, maybe right after the, one of the many that you won with the 49ers, if you got a phone call saying, hey, get ready to head to the land down under for week 1 of the NFL season, and you are going to play the Los Angeles Rams out in Melbourne, Australia, I can't imagine you'd be too happy about that.
Oh man, not at all. Only thing you can think about is okay, it is the first game of the season, right? So right now they talking about playing it. They're talking about playing it on Wednesday. Okay, so maybe let's get a jump on them. Let's go down. Let's go down down under the last couple of weeks in training camp or something. 1 week in training camp and get ready to play them on a Wednesday, which NFL has never played a football game on Wednesday night. And
Weird, man. It's
yeah,
gonna be
that's
weird.
right, but that would give you a little bit of more time to get used to the situation, and a little bit more time to get yourself back home and get back in the groove of things. But man, that's a long way to go to play a football game.
It's crazy to me that they're doing this for a divisional game, man. Like this isn't like a Titans Jaguars divisional game that you're sending over to London. You know what I mean? This is two of your premier franchises in the NFL, two of the best teams perennially in recent years, and you are sending them on a 16-hour nonstop flight to a land that is 19 hours in time difference away. That is not something your body just adjusts to in a couple days. Like that, it takes weeks to get on that right time schedule, especially when you're considering the level of athlete that we're talking about here. Like we're talking about guys who are complaining about maybe the substation is making a 1% difference in their ability. Well, a 19-hour time difference is going to make a hell of a lot more of a difference in your ability than a 1% difference. So this is a big deal to me. The 49ers have not played overseas in 13 years. It's a long time. Most of these guys on this roster have not had to experience this also. So I don't know, man. I personally, I like the idea. It sounds fun. I don't want the 49ers doing this. I don't want it to be the 49ers who are going on this 19-hour flight. I like the idea of the NFL expanding, it becoming a global game, all that kind of stuff. Sounds great. I don't want the 49ers to be the damn guinea pig, especially when they're playing the Rams, man. Like that's the thing I think that irks me the most is how important this game could be. Like we could be pointing back to this week 1 matchup in Australia as the reason that the 49ers did or did not, get win the division or even make the playoffs, if things don't go how we expect them to go next season. So, I mean, I am just not thrilled about this.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking the same too. But the NFL and maybe they can stretch it out, have the Rams schedule where they're playing a Thursday. Last preseason game is a Thursday night game. Okay, so now they got more time that gives you a little bit more time. But man, you can't have two teams do that. That's in the same division. There's no way. Let Jacksonville go to Beirut or something and play a game and let them play the Jets or somebody, okay? But not like this, okay? Don't hang the 49ers out there with the number one team that they have to face in that conference. Yeah, hey, it doesn't make sense.
No, and I will say one more thing about this.
But hey.
the 49ers, they better get a Monday Night Football game after in week 2. I need them to have that Monday Night Football game in week 2 because you cannot expect this team. I know they get a couple extra days by playing on a Wednesday or a Thursday, but if you're able to start the season on the Wednesday and then they don't have to play again until Monday in the following week, you're almost getting a bye week there. And maybe in that situation, you can kind of start to justify it just a little bit more because that you're two days essentially shy of a full bye week in that situation. But man, I am not thrilled about this idea. It does not give me the warm, fuzzy feels going into the 2026 NFL season. But hey, this is you got to play the cards you're dealt, and this is the cards that the 49ers have been dealt. And the one kind of positive situation to this is that the Rams are in the same boat. So it's not like they're the one I'll be absolutely pissed, man. You'll hear me yelling and screaming a lot in come week 1 if the Rams get the Monday night game the following week and the 49ers don't. So we'll see what happens there. Maybe they do a situation where both teams get the Monday night game, and we'll see what happens. But a lot to be decided with the NFL schedule still, and we will keep you guys updated as things progress. One more real quick topic before we get on out of here, because I know we're over time, but man, I already teased it, so we got to get into it just a little bit. George Kittle, he kind of insinuated that maybe Deebo Samuel could come back to the 49ers this year. He even said, I like Deebo a lot, been hanging out with him this offseason. How would you feel about seeing Deebo coming back to the 49ers?
I would go. I'm all in for Deebo. I think Deebo's a tough guy. He plays the game the way it should be played. That guy, when he's healthy, man, he brings it. And you go back and look at the receivers that they have now. Hey, couldn't none of them stay in the ring with Deebo? Yeah,
No.
I put them in. I put it all up. Huh? Who can handle you?
In just a sheer toughness perspective, maybe Jawan Jennings. I mean, that guy just loves to mix it up, laying some nasty blocks. I mean, I would say he's tough, but Deebo brings a different level of punishment the way he carries that football for sure.
Oh, yeah, he does. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Deebo punishes people. He enjoys it. A guy keeps a smile on his face when he makes somebody hurt.
I mean, given the nickname Deebo, who is obviously, if I would assume most people know this, but if you don't, it's taken directly from the character Deebo in the movie Friday, who's just a big neighborhood bully who goes around beating people up and taking their stuff. And that's what Deebo's trying to do out there on the field. Deebo Samuel's trying to beat you up and take your lunch money every down. It doesn't matter if he's getting the ball or not. So I would also think that, he'd be an immediate massive upgrade over everybody else in this 49ers wide receiver group right now. And I know that he didn't leave on the most amicable terms, but maybe he saw a little bit of the other side. Maybe he saw a little bit of what life is like without Kyle Shanahan in a situation like going over to the Washington Commanders. And I did see, Dwayne, your favorite NFL wide receiver of years past, Michael Irvin, talking about this on 95.7 The Game. He was basically saying why that he was telling Deebo when Deebo was going through all his disputes with the 49ers, Michael Irvin was in Deebo's ear telling him, dude, what are you doing? Why the hell are you trying to leave Kyle Shanahan? This guy is the best thing that's ever going to happen to you in your career. And Michael Irvin himself said, if I ever had Kyle Shanahan as a head coach, I would do anything I could to never leave that guy's side. So I do think that maybe Deebo might have a little bit of a change of heart. We'll see in the offseason. Obviously, he's got that connection with Brock. He's got that connection with George Kittle and other guys in the locker room. I'm not saying Deebo's going to fix all the 49ers problems in the wide receiver group, but it's got to be better than what they got this last year, right?
Oh, yeah.
So that's about all the time that we have for you guys today. A lot of stuff today, and some good deep dives on Raheem Morris and in his scheme and what he's going to bring to this 49ers defense. A lot of good stuff about the Australia game, Brock Purdy season. We got into a lot of stuff today, man. Great show. And, we'll be back at it next week. We got to get into some of the underwear Olympics that's coming up, the NFL Combine, and we got to make sure that we're all keeping our eyes out on some safeties, some offensive linemen. And next week, we'll get a little bit deeper into that, who you should be looking out for and names to keep track of and watch them rise or fall in the NFL Combine. And maybe we'll get into a little bit of like mock draft kind of stuff. That might be fun. So make sure you're tuning in next week to the NFL or the Locked On 49ers squad show. And make sure you're tuning in every day to the Locked On 49ers podcast with Brian Peacock and Eric Crocker. Those guys do a great job. And we'll be getting Peacock and Crocker in here during the offseason occasionally. But for the most part, you're going to be getting me, Dwayne, and Ayrton. So for me, Eric Triple E Engel, Dwayne Board, our 4-time Super Bowl champion, and Ayrton Ostley of USA Today, thanks so much for tuning in. We'll see you next time. Peace.
Peace.